Hi, we're back again for domain range continuous data part 2. We are going to talk about in part 2. There's going to be a third part as well, but in part 2, we're going to talk about what your domain and range is going to look like if it's a continuous line that has two arrows. So it could go like this with arrows pointing this way. It could go like this with the arrows pointing this way, or it can go like this with the arrows pointing this way, or like this with the arrows pointing this way, right? With two arrows. We'll get to one other one at the end, but these are the ones you're going to see the most. So the first thing to think about when you're doing this is that if there's two arrows, then one of your either your domain or your range is going to be all numbers, all real numbers. You just need to look at your arrows and see where they're going. Remember that the domain goes this way, and your range goes this way. Goes not that way. Goes up and down. Right? Your domain is left and right, and your range is up and down. You have two arrows, so you have to see, are these arrows going left and right or up and down? When your graph looks like this, where this arrow is going this way to the left and up forever, and this arrow is going to the right and up forever, then that means it's going to the left and the right forever, right? It doesn't stop. The leftmost point is an arrow, so that's negative infinity. The rightmost point is an arrow, so that's positive infinity. So this type of arrow that's going to the left and the right forever has a domain, it has an x of all real numbers, because of the arrows. It definitely has a range, right? It has a low point and it has a high point, right? This point here would be the lowest point on this type of graph. And you have to see, where is that on the range? It's right here at -1, right? The first thing you need to do is find whichever point's the lowest and find out where it is on the y. This point on the y is at -1. And you need to see what those arrows are doing. Are they going up or down? In this case, it's going up. So that means your range is everything greater than or equal to -1. Again, just look at the graph and see. Your choices are either it's going to be higher or it's going to be lower. There is nothing lower. There is no arrow pointing down. The arrow is pointing up. So it's got to be -1 and everything higher than -1. So your range is going to be y is greater than or equal to -1 with a domain of all real numbers. Here, let's do another one. So again, on this one, you see your arrows are pointing left and your arrows pointing right. Once you see that, that's your x. So that means your domain is all real numbers. All real numbers. But your range, it definitely has a range. So you need to see, where is the range? Remember, range is your y. Where is it starting? And it looks like it's starting here. At this point, this is the highest point, right? It's starting here, it's going down. So on the y, this point is +3. So is your range all the numbers less than 3 or all the numbers greater than 3? Of course, it's going to be, since the arrow is pointing down, that means your range starts at 3 and it's everything less than or equal to 3 because it's going down. Here's another one, similar, same thing. You have arrows pointing left and you have an arrow pointing right. So your domain is all real numbers. All real, and I'm going to use this for all real numbers. Now your range, again, it definitely has a distinct range. Where does it start? Right here. right? This is the lowest point at 2, right? This is the 2. So your range is going to have to do something with 2, right? It starts at 2 and it goes up. So that means it's greater than or equal to 2 because that's up. Arrows pointing up. This one, same thing. Arrows going left, arrows going right. So your domain is all real numbers. All real numbers. Again, I'm using this little symbol. But your range, on the other hand, where's the range starting on the Y? At this point. And I have to pick this point, right? I can't pick a point down here because this is an arrow, which means it's going down forever. So my range has something to do with 1, 2, 3, 4, with 4. And again, I just said it, the arrow's going down. So it's less than or equal to this number because the arrow's going down. We turn it. Now the arrows are going this way, right? The arrow's going up and to the right and down and to the right. So if I look at my range, I'm looking at my range. Again, I'm looking at my range. I'm looking at my Y, right? The arrow's going up forever, arrow's going down forever. So that means my range is all real numbers. So look at the direction your arrow's going. When it's pointing this way, your arrow's going up and down is range. So your range is all real numbers. When the arrows are pointing this way, going left and right. And left and right would be your domain is all real numbers. This one, if the range is all real numbers, then I have to have a starting point for my domain. So if I'm looking at this point, and I'm looking at this point on the domain, on the X, that's at 2. And since my arrows are pointing right, I know that on a number line, right means greater than or equal to 2, right? Because it starts here and the arrows go to the right, which is greater than. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is look to see where my arrows are going. My arrows are going up and to the left and down and to the left. So if they're going up and down, that means my range is all real numbers. I'm going to use this symbol for all real numbers, but this means all real. My domain, I have a distinct domain, right? I got to look at my X and see where it starts. It starts here. This is at -1. It starts at -1 and the arrows go to the left. And the left, these numbers over here are less than -1. So that means my domain is X is less than or equal to -1. One more time, where are my arrows going? They're going up forever and they're going down forever. That's range. Up and down is my range. So my range is all real numbers, right? This symbol. My X is going to be different, right? Where is it starting? It's starting here. Again, I'm going to pick this point because I can't pick any of these points because there's an arrow. It's going to the right forever, but this is where it starts at -2. And again, it's going to the right forever, and right is greater than. Last one, I got an arrow going up and an arrow going down. So my range is all real numbers. And I'm going to do this symbol here. But my domain definitely has a domain. So where does it start? It starts here, which is at 1, 2, 3, 4, which is at -4. And it's going to the left, and I know that the left means that it's less than or equal to -4. So again, that's it. You're basically looking for where the arrows are going. Again, I know this isn't a smooth arc, but it's still the same, right? Your arrows are going to the left. Your arrows are going to the right. Left and right is your X. So your domain is all real numbers. Because the arrow's going to the left and the arrow's going to the right. Your range, it has a specific point right here. This is at 3 on the y. So is it all the numbers less than 3 or all the numbers more than 3? Of course, it's going down, so it's all the numbers less than 3. Again, look at your arrows. This arrow is going up and to the left. This arrow is going down and to the left. So we have up and down, so that means my range is all real. So that means I'm going to have a domain. So I need to see where does it start on the x. And on the x, it starts here at -1. And the arrows are going to the left. And the left I know is less than or equal to -1. So this is the exception. You might see it, you might not. It's where it's just a line, right? If I see this arrow's going down and to the left and this arrow's going up and to the right, right? It doesn't end either way. It's not something that looks like this or this, right? It's going straight up and down like this. It's when everything, your domain is all real and your range is all real. And that's all real because this line, these arrows are going down and up forever, and they're going left and right forever. So it can look like this. It could be going this way. Right? It's just a straight line, in other words. This is just going to be a straight line. There's no bend like what we've been doing. It's just a straight line with arrows at the end. That's where your domain and range is all real numbers. Yeah, I think that's it. It would be a difference if this line, don't want to confuse you. So the biggest part of this is this type of stuff. Where's your arrows going? But just like with what we were doing in part 1, if there's a straight, perfectly horizontal line that has arrows on the both ends, your domain would be all real numbers because left is an arrow and right is an arrow. But just like with the straight line, your range is going to be wherever it is, right? It's at 3, so your range would be y equals 3. So that would be the horizontal line. If you had a vertical line that went straight up and down, your range would be all real numbers because there's an arrow going up and an arrow going down, but your domain would be wherever that vertical line is. And in this case, it's 3. So there's always slight exceptions, and those were that. But with any other sort of line with arrows on the end that's not perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical, everything, range and domain are going to be all real. Yeah. That's it for this one.